Well, today is Sunday the 12th of May, happens to be Mother's Day, 2024. I'll try and be brief, and incidentally before I begin my brief discussion, the video I'm showing in the background is my own work. It was a trip to Adelaide, so I don't have any copyright problems. If anybody would like to pass on my ideas, they're quite free to do so. I'd be very happy for anyone to look into what I'm about to say in relation to two train services. One is Melbourne to Adelaide, and the other is Melbourne to Mildura, which does not have a train service at present and hasn't had for some years. The concept involves having a 5-car train based on the Velocity rail car, in which there'd be first class and a snack bar lounge like those that are used on the Brisbane to Cairns, Spirit of Queensland, and Brisbane to Longreach, Spirit of the Outback services. So first class and economy, 5 cars, standard gauge, operating daily from Adelaide to Ararat and return, and have an identical set Melbourne to Ararat and return on the broad gauge. And the main reason for doing so is to allow people simply to change to their other opposite train, as it were, and depending on which way they're going. In other words, it'd be around about a 20-minute change of trains. They both arrive at the same time in Ararat, and it'd be a cross-platform transfer, and people would just go straight across to the opposite train, and if they had seat 13 in car A, they go to seat 13 in car A. That would save, without any exaggeration, between 2 to 3 hours travel time compared to the current overland, which runs rather slowly by comparison, whereas the Velocity can do 160 kilometres an hour. Although, even if it travelled only at 130 to 140, that would be a great improvement over what the overland does at the present time. Plus that it travels via Geelong and Cressy round to Ararat, which takes time. So I'm suggesting that, as I said, the broad gauge to Ararat and standard gauge Ararat to Adelaide, operating at a faster speed, only if it's only 20 kilometres an hour faster or so, not a high speed, but something is reasonable. I would suggest that would become extremely popular, and people would criticise now, oh, well, you've got to change trains, but you have to change trains in many instances anyway when you're travelling around Victoria. And if you're wanting to get to Mildura, for example, you have to change at Swan Hill. You go by train to Swan Hill, and you go by bus from Swan Hill to Mildura. So my idea is to have a standard gauge Velocity train running Mildura to Maryborough, and an identical train running Melbourne to Maryborough, where passengers would change trains from standard gauge to broad gauge and vice versa, once again using a similar system that I've just described to Ararat. Now, of course, we've got the issue there of people not being interested, or authorities not being interested in running it. They have a second-rate service at the current time for Melbourne to Adelaide, as many people know. It squeaks all the way. It's old equipment, and even if you had new equipment, it'd still be just as slow. But I'm suggesting that if the system I've just raised is used, it'd be a vast improvement. And as I say, once again, in relation to Mildura, a similar situation, very, very cost effective to introduce the idea, and it can be done now in a sense. And also, if desired, a standard gauge rail car could be operated from Ararat down to Portland. That's something worthwhile considering. It's not pie in the sky in my opinion. I just believe it'd be a reasonable thing to consider. So if you put those three matters into consideration, I believe that it's worth doing. So I just thought I'd put that idea to people in general, and I'd welcome civil and polite comments or any discussion on the whole of the concepts that I've just been talking about. So I really would welcome that. And as I've said before many times, anything that I discuss on transport issues like that, and I, by the way, was involved in transport lobby work for many years, and many of my suggestions were acted upon and accepted. So I'd like groups like the Public Transport Users Association of Victoria and any other groups to take this matter up and progress it. So I'd love to hear from people as a result of this movie. So thank you for viewing.